Yes, people, welcome back to the Oniyaya. And today, we're talking about Eze to Arsenal. After the BOMBA, after Tottenham lost out on their top target for the summer in Eze, now Arsenal have hijacked that deal for £67.5 million. So we're going to be talking about what he brings, 3 things he brings to Arsenal today on the Oniyaya. But before we do that, my people, always please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the page. Keep hitting the bell for notifications so I can continue bringing you great content going forward. So, as we have seen, Eze to Arsenal, quality. Top player. There's no doubt that he might be what will help Arsenal to get over the line. Now, we see other teams like City and Liverpool, United, Chelsea, the top 6 clubs, Tottenham even, buying high-level quality and flexing their muscle in the market. You know, Havertz was just announced injured less than 48 hours ago, and Arsenal quickly went into the market and got one of their targets through the summer. Now, Eze's been linked to Arsenal for a while now, especially over this summer. So it's not something new for us to see them so-called hijack the deal, right? So the first thing he brings to this team is creativity. Eze is one of the most creative players in the league. Probably his numbers don't really show that, but in terms of the eye test, his link-up play, the way he moves around the pitch, how he drives with the ball, it's a big thing for Arsenal. You know, Arsenal don't really have a player like Eze, a player that can come off the wing and float within the number 10 channel and play as a link-up player towards the midfielder. It's something that they're actually missing. So, I think in terms of creativity, he brings so much creativity to this team. Also, he creates a lot of big chances within his time in the Premier League. He also does such a good job for Crystal Palace in terms of releasing the pressure, in terms of carrying the ball into the corner, or attacking the midfield, or driving through the space, or playing a pin eye ball to Mateta. You know, he's such a good player. How many times we see Eze pick up the ball in a channel from a hard pass from a midfielder and just link up play 1-2s and finish. Like, his silkiness and his smoothness towards the game suits Arsenal so much. And also to see that Arsenal has picked up a silky type player, a creative player that can drift through the park, it's really nice to see. So, also what he brings is versatility, right? So Eze is a very versatile player. Not only can he play in the 10th position, he can also play as a left winger, and he can also play as a right centre mid. So he can play in so many different positions in this team that it makes him a versatile and flexible player. Now, let's just have a look at some of his statistics, right? So here's some of his attacking statistics over the Premier League for the 24-25 season. We have 8 goals, 8 assists, expected goals. So he's actually was over his expected goals, just under his expected goals for the season, which it's not really a big deal when your expected assist was just 4 and you hit 8 for the season. So he kind of balanced it off in a way, where this is not a bad performance for a player at Crystal Palace. Remember, they're playing 1 game a week. They're also not the most in-depth squad in terms of quality. You know, when you really think of Palace, you think of Wharton, Eze, Mateta, Guy. Other than that, you don't really think of the other players. I'm not saying they're not good, but I'm just saying they're not at that quality in which you would say, all right, this is a high-level footballer. So we have him also in terms of big chances created. We can see 11. Big chances missed, 8. And then shots on target, just under 1 per game. Now, that for me is a big worry when we're looking at an attacking player, especially playing for Arsenal. Now, this can be for 2 things. Is it that Eze only attacks, he's not a big on shooting as much? Or is it because he's in a team that doesn't have as much possession, so he only gets 1 to 2 shots per game? Now he's in a team like Arsenal who creates chances like water for fun. Not as much as for the last year, but we know Arsenal as a team that creates chances, right? They're good enough in attack to create chances. I don't think you, even if they're like Stoke FC at the moment, I don't think you come second in the Premier League just playing that sort of football. So let's just respect them for a bit and say that they do actually create enough chances for Eze to have more than just under a shot per game. Not talking about just under a shot per game, right? We also can see that Eze also, he's also a part of a team that doesn't keep as much possession. So let's look at his possession stats, yeah? So, based on how he plays, again, he has 46.6 touches overall. So, throughout the whole season, he was averaging 46.6 touches per game, right? Key passes per 90, he was averaging 1.7. So, not bad, especially for Crystal Palace, that we know don't win games 4, 5, 6-0. So, if you're looking at this, it means that every game he's somewhat, in a way, involved in the attacking play in a big way. Okay? We can also see that based on his heat map, like he does both sides of the game, right? Well, but just saying, you know, his key passes, he's definitely involved in the attacking play most times. Now, as we saw, he had 8 assists when his expected assist was just 4.6, right? His passing percentage, 82%. So, in the Premier League, as a winger, this isn't bad. But as a midfielder, this is actually below par. Because usually as a central midfielder, so if he's going to play in the left centre mid or the right centre mid, either way for Arsenal, right? Because he's definitely somewhat versatile and can play for Odegaard, with Odegaard, and as a left winger, even sometimes as a right winger. You know, Arsenal can actually put Eze on the right and put Madueke on the left and give Saka a rest, or switch it over and do the either or. So there's a lot of things that he can do that can help Arsenal. Now, successful dribbles, 2.0, so 2 successful dribbles per game, which, in the Premier League, this is a hard, there's not a lot of players that have a lot of successful dribbles per game. And especially playing for Crystal Palace that don't have the ball that much, or their average possession per game is probably under the 46% percentile, right? That you don't really see a player like Eze being able to show what he can do on a consistent basis as much as possible. Now, he has to improve his output in terms of attacking and in terms of goals and assists. 1, playing for Arsenal, but 2, being a 27-year-old and have so much experience in the Premier League, he has to start to do better. I don't think he's in the position now where we can consistently say that Eze is a boy. Okay, so we have to really look and see that he has to improve in terms of his output. Now, possession loss, this is a big thing that I saw and I thought, 12.9 times losing possession per game. Now, this again can be based on because he's at Crystal Palace, or because he's the only player at Palace that is as creative, so he also tries a lot of things. Now, we look at players like Bruno Fernandes who have a high percentage of possession loss, but Bruno Fernandes creates the most chances in the Premier League since he's came, right? So it's, okay, fine, you're creating, I can see your output, but I can't hit the numbers. The numbers don't add up when you're losing possession so many times and you're averaging 8 goals, 8 assists. Now, for Crystal Palace, those are good numbers. But for Arsenal, think about it. If Saka was to have 8 goals and 8 assists, we would say that is a poor season. So Eze has to hit those numbers now, especially taking this step in his career in order for him to become an elite player. Now, the third thing he brings to Arsenal is that he works well on both sides of the ball. Okay? So, this brings me to my other statistic, which is his defensive statistics. Now, personally, okay, I think Eze isn't a bad player defensively. His numbers might not show it in terms of, I don't expect him to have a lot of tackles per game, or I don't expect him to be having the numbers a defensive midfielder have. But based on the eye test, you don't have to worry about how hard he worked. And you can see on his heat map, based on his progression, he's willing to come very deep to be involved in play. And he also works all over the pitch. Now for Palace, he hasn't really had the chance to play in a central midfield role. He can play it, but he's never had the chance to really do it, especially last season at Palace. When you have players like Hughes, Wharton in your midfield, you're not really trying to put Eze in a midfield three, and you don't have a winger. So that's why you see Eze heat map just look a bit structurally on the left. But you can see he's a player that likes to be involved in the game. You see all these spots also on the right side, which shows that he's a player that likes to be involved in the game. So here he is. Interceptions 0.3. We can see tackles 1.1 per game. So he's actually getting a tackle in now and again. 0.5 for possessions won in the opposition half. Now this is big because if he's winning the possession in the opposition half at least once every other game, that means that's a chance Arsenal probably can create in every other game, right? So, and I'm not saying that one chance is a big chance, but you winning the ball in the opposition half, we have seen over the last, I would say 2 seasons, especially last season, a lot of goals were scored from opposition's balls being won in the opposition half. So the point that Eze does this once every other game, imagine if you have your 4 attacking players, right? So your 10, your wingers, and your striker, each winning the ball once every other game you know what I mean? Now you've had 4 high level chances in 4 games. And knowing how good they are defensively, Arsenal 1-0 up, it's very hard to break them down. So this is also a good dynamic that we should look into, that we can see that Eze will benefit from going to Arsenal. Now, balls recovered 4.3 per 90. So you see, not only is he winning the ball in the opposition half once every other game, but he's recovering it just at least 4 times. So once every 15 minutes, he's going to recover the ball. Which means that this is not a bad thing. This is actually really good when you have a winger recovering the ball over 5-6 times a game. It brings a lot of momentum to your team, and also it allows you to have possession and keep possession higher up the pitch. Now, total duels won, again, he's not afraid to get into challenges. This will help him a lot in the midfield area because he'll have to win a bit more, but he's winning his duels. I mean, as a winger, if you're winning 5 to 6 duels per game, it's a good look. It means that you're winning your one-on-ones. It means that you're keeping the right back in check. You're keeping them honest. There's a lot of things about these defensive statistics that actually can help you in your attacking game, right? Errors leading to a shot, 3 throughout the whole season. So he's a person that gives away the ball a lot. But Crystal Palace has such a good defensive structure, as we've seen, that he hasn't really, 1, his shots leading to goals, 0 for the season. And 2, his errors leading to shots, only 3 for the season. So that means that he's losing the ball in the higher end of the pitch. He's like 92% accuracy of passing in his own half. So that means that he keeps the ball well in his own half. So the third thing that Eze brings, and for me the main thing that he brings to the team, and I think it's very important, is that he's actually a lifelong fan to Arsenal. Now, Arsenal fans will be happy because, 1, not only has he been a target for Arsenal for a couple of years now, but Eze has also been a fan of Arsenal from since a boy. Now, as a Premier League player who has played in the league for a while, who has played at a club that he's actually proved himself that he's good and he's good enough to play for Arsenal. I think that is a big thing because as we can see, players like Konya and BOMBA who really wanted to play for, say, a United, who really went there because they actually loved the club. Look at the intensity. Look at the level in which they played against Arsenal. You know, you can tell that it meant more to them winning that game than it meant anything else. You know, that they put their heart out because they were actually fans of the club. You can feel that intensity. You can feel that love to the club. And I think Arsenal actually needed a player that came into the club of high quality, that wanted to be there because they loved the club and not because of the opportunity the club would give them. You know, now so it adds up on both sides. So let's have a look at my rumored, or how do I think Arsenal will set up with Eze in it. Now, there's a few ways that Arsenal can do this, okay? He can actually be a direct replacement for one of the midfielders. Or, in my opinion, he's a direct replacement for Gabriel Martinelli. Now, Gabriel Martinelli has been struggling over the last 2 seasons to become more creative. I don't think he's developed as much as what people would have thought he would become. Because when he first hit the scenes, he was dynamic, he was quick, he was always in transition, he was causing teams a lot of problems, he was beating people. But now, I feel like every time he gets the ball, he just turns back. He doesn't take people on as much, he's not as dynamic, he doesn't create many chances for Arsenal. And I think Arsenal really need Eze to come off of the left wing. Now, with a player like Eze now, I think it makes it difficult for a Miles Lewis-Skelly to get into this team. Now, people might say I'm crazy, okay? But just hear me out for a second. Miles Lewis-Skelly is not an overlapping winger. Eze is not a winger. He's not an overlapping left back. He inverts a lot, okay? Eze is going to come now and come into the space and drift inwards, which makes me understand now that Arsenal is going to need a wing back or a left back that keeps on attacking and overlapping. Now, Mikel Arteta has picked Calafiori because that's what he does. Calafiori might not be the greatest on the ball, but he attacks well, he overlaps well, and he's all intensity. Now, you can't blame the manager for picking a left back that brings that, especially when now he has a left winger that's going to drift inside. Eze is going to come and link up play with Odegaard, with Rice, with Gyökeres. He's going to be the guy that's slipping Gyökeres and Saka in, while Rice and Odegaard is going to progress the ball a bit more. You know, there's so many ways Arsenal can change this, because they also can drop a Rice back and play a 4-2-3-1 and have 2 6s. Because in the game against United, they were struggling with a bit of their midfield not being open and Zubomendi being left on his own and just having to do a lot of defensive work. So I feel like if you can give Rice a bit more of that defensive work while you free up Zubomendi a bit more to be on the ball and progress it a bit more, then you can get Odegaard involved, you can get the Ezes involved, you can get those passes being played through those small spaces to then release a Gyökeres who want to run the channel, or Saka who's always getting in behind. So he brings that dynamic. Now, you can also say, hey, sit down on the bench, Odegaard. Let me play an Eze in the 10, right? He can also be a direct replacement. Not replacement, but he can also leave or be in the rotation for the Odegaard. Or, as we know, we can have a Rice, Odegaard, Eze, or Zubomendi, Odegaard, Eze. So there's so many different... And I haven't even spoken about the Morinos of the world, you know. So there's a lot of dynamics in which Arsenal can play with the Eze. Now, with Eze coming in, what does that mean for a player like Ethan Nwaneri now? That just signed a new contract, okay? And Arsenal basically has said to him that you will be a part of this project. But you bring in players like Madueke, you have Eze, you have Odegaard, you have Martinelli, you have Trossard that's still at the club. You have a lot of players that's there. Waneri isn't a striker, so what's going to happen with him? Is he going to now still be a part of this rotation? Should he have left Arsenal? There's so many things now. I feel like also with Eze coming in that actually could bring issues to a player like a Waneri, who was that player who played in that 10, can play in the midfield, can play off the wing. So Arsenal has to be very careful in how they're going about this. Or is he a replacement for a Trossard who can also play at the 10 or as a winger? So does that mean that Trossard is going to leave the club? So there's so many questions to be asked or answered about Eze to Arsenal. Now, personally, I think that this is not a transfer that gets Arsenal over the line. This doesn't make Arsenal win the league. I still think that Arsenal should get them a more of a winger that can run in behind, that can actually take on their man every time. But who's to know? I've never seen Eze play solely as a left winger other than drifting inside like a Jack Grealish, like a Cunha, and creating space for them inside. So we'll see how that works for Arsenal, because all for the last 4 or 5 seasons under Arteta, Arsenal has always kept their wingers touching the line. So now it's going to be very different and very exciting to see what Eze does, especially with him coming off and drifting inside and creating an extra body for Arsenal to play in the middle of the park. It's been your boy Yaya, people. Take care and have a good time.